sorry if I kept us late.
And we got 7:03. 7:03. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have no video. Nobody's got their video on at all. Chauncey, are you there?
Well, I mean, we've been waiting to get in, so.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm stepping out.
Hey, Chauncey. All right. Let's see, so, right, Stephanie, you're there. I see Christina. Valerie, welcome from the Bronx Borough office. Bronx Borough
Thank
Commissioner's
you.
Office.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And then who is 646-732-2369? You don't have to identify yourself, but if you're with an agency, it would be good to know your name. I can put it in the record if you're here with an agency. They'll remain mysterious.
Yeah, unless the person speaks, and then
Yeah.
they have to identify themselves.
Who was a committee member that's online?
Nobody's a committee member online. So I will call the meeting to order. It's 7:03. I am Deb Travis. I'm the chair of the Community Board 8 Parks and Recreation Committee. I normally go through housekeeping of how you should raise your hand and lower your hand, but since it's a group of very experienced folks on the call this evening, I'll skip through that, and I'll go right to attendance. So Bob Bender?
Here.
Margaret Della, absent. Bob Panuzzi?
Here.
Rashida? Yeah. Rob Duklowski, absent. Ramdat, absent for the moment. And me, I'm here. Let's start off with approval of the minutes of January 24th and February 28th. We did not have a quorum at the last meeting, so we tabled the approval of the January 24th minutes. Any changes or notes? If there's no objections, I move to approve the amended minutes by unanimous consent. Any objections? No. The minutes of January 24th and February 28th committee meeting minutes are unanimously approved. The chair's report. So we have had a change in the committee. So David Gelman is no longer a member of the Parks Committee. Also, we have 2 members of our committee who will be leaving the board, and I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge them. Robert Fanuzzi, who's here with us tonight, and Robert Duklowski. So Bob Fanuzzi, I would like to describe as a force of nature, and he's been more than a decade on the board. I don't know how long you've been on the board, but it seems like a very long time. And you, including serving 3 years as board chair. So it's been just a pleasure to have you on this committee. It's been a pleasure to work with you on the board. And so I just want to, say thank you and congratulations on graduating, retiring. I'm not sure what the next step is, but congratulations. Yeah. And I hope you follow in the pattern of Jody Colon and return often and contribute actively. And I also just wanted to say, Rob Duklowski has been another really thoughtful member of the committee, and he's not here this evening, but I also hope he'll continue to stop by when there are issues that he's really interested and passionate about. And the other piece of news is just Strong Street Playground. The capital reconstruction of Strong Street Playground will begin April 15th. Construction is expected to take 12 to 18 months. If you'd like further information about the design, it can be found on the Parks Department website in the Capital Project Tracker. And then without further ado, I would like to introduce Chauncey Young. I invited him to help us understand better how we can best support the connection of the Harlem River Greenway to the new Greenway and Linear Park that's being built as part of the Tibbetts Brook Daylighting Project. And I will be honest, I don't even feel entirely clear what that park is called, if it's Putnam South, if it's Tibbetts, the Tibbetts Greenway, like what the actual name is of that really important greenway that's being built. It will extend from Van Cortlandt Park to West 230th Street. And part of this greenway, as part of this project, an easement there's going to be an easement between West 230th Street and West 225th Street that allows a partially buried pipe to direct the water from the Dalet stream underground into the Harlem River. But there will not be any public access for the path to continue below West 230th Street as part of the daylighting project. So anyone who is familiar with the area, however, knows that West 230th Street is a fraught area for a major greenway to come to an end, and that all greenways need to provide useful connections as part of a system in order to really be successful. So Chauncey has been a leader, along with the Bronx Council of Environmental Quality, in advocating for the Harlem River Greenway. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to him to talk about the current status of the Harlem River Greenway and how the committee can best advocate for additional park connections between that greenway and the soon-to-be-built greenway that's part of the Tibbetts Brook Daylighting Project. Chauncey, can you, you're
Thank you
muted.
so much. Yes, you hear me now?
Yeah.
I need to have,
You hear me now?
I need to have, yes, we can hear you. I
Yeah,
need to have
great.
screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
having a
Karen.
little issue. I'm having a little issue sharing the presentation. So I was asking if Karen would be able. I also sent it to you, Deb. So either way, I just wanted to make sure I could show it. I'm trying to reconnect with a different link where I could
Okay,
show
Karen,
it directly.
go
But
on.
let me just start off. So the plans for the Harlem River Greenway go on back over. Great, thank you so much, Karen. Go on for more than now. Hold on, I'm going to kick myself off this second Zoom. Hold on. All right. So
Recording in progress.
okay, I killed that one. Sorry, didn't want to double zoom. It would be a problem. So the Harlem River Working Group has been, formed to really reconnect folks to the waterfront that we've been disconnected to for several generations. Can you change to the next page, Karen? Great. And I think we all know where the Harlem River is, but it's always good just to show it for us. The Harlem River is not actually a river, it's an estuary. We're connected to the Hudson River to the west, and the East River and the Long Island Sound and the Bronx Kill to the south. And when I go to the next page, Karen. So, it's not always been that we've been disconnected from the waterfront. Decades back, the Harlem River was the center of recreational boating, not just for the Bronx, not just for New York City, but for our entire region. Some of the first regattas in the country were raced on the Harlem River. And prior to the time of Robert Moses, there were between 40 and 50 boathouses on either side of the Harlem River. So this was really a center for recreational boating in New York City, and most of our neighborhoods, including in Community Board 8, were connected to their waterfront. So we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to skip this one. This is really just talking about our coalition. We're really trying to connect both this is perfect. We're trying to connect, along Community Board 8. Ideally, we'd like to make that connection at some point to the Hudson River, all the way to the Hudson River, but that adds additional complications. But the original vision was what Karen, you're just jumping through. Don't. It's okay. Yeah, don't worry. No stress. No stress. It's so.
I think you were in charge, but.
Trying to confuse me. It's okay. So
Get excited about going all the way to Hudson River.
She saw the outfalls and she had to go there.
Exactly. I know. We know how Karen is with her outfalls, right? So, you know, the Harlem River, the Harlem River encompasses 5 community boards. So from CB8, where we're at today, CB7, CB5, CB4, and off the map down to CB1. The change that's happened over the last 15 years is that the waterfront, which was publicly owned, is rapidly moving into private ownership. So there is a real issue with connecting folks to the waterfront that we're working on throughout many areas, not in CB8, but in the other community boards. We went from 83% publicly owned to the majority of the property in CB1, and much of the CB4 has been transferred into private property in the last 15 years. So we are in a rush against time to get the Greenway completed. We can go to the next page now. So, you know, what is disconnecting us from our waterfront and why we've been advocating for this and why it's so difficult is that, you know, we know that Robert Moses built the Deegan Expressway along the waterfront, and on the other side, the Harlem River Drive. We have the Cross Bronx Expressway with its loops in CB4 and CB5 that further separate communities from the waterfront. We have a rail line in CB4 and CB1 that runs along the water for 1.9 miles, and that's what you're seeing in the corner of that picture, literally on the water. So we've built 2 waterfront parks on the waterfront in CB4 and CB1, and neither one of them have access to the water due to that rail line. So access to the water is really challenging. We can go to the next page. So also an issue that we're trying to address in this is discharge of sewage into the Harlem River. Part of the whole Putnam Greenway that we're going to be talking about, the reason that it's being funded is we love that it's giving us a greenway, but it's really about cutting down on sewage discharge into the Harlem River and flooding into the Harlem River. We can go to the next page. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Harlem River is being transformed, and closest to you is the Fordham Landing project in CB7, which is nearly a $4 billion project on 30 acres of what was CXX property to the north and the south of the Fordham Bridge. And that is going to completely reshape CB7 and by relation reshape CB8. So as I noted, this is not a new plan that we're talking about. 1993, Mayor Dinkins and the Fernanda Ferrer in the Bronx Greenway plan called for the Harlem River Greenway and the Putnam Greenway. So these are old plans that have been around for now 31 years. We can go to the next page, Karen. This is an example of the Bronx Greenway plan. You can see on this plan for Fernanda Ferrer's plan, which I want to point out that BCEQ leaders, including Dart Westfall, was part of that plan about this direct connection, connecting community members, you know, throughout the Bronx from the South Bronx to Van Cortlandt Park and points beyond. So this is, you know, something that has been around now for, you know, 31 years at this point, this vision. Next slide. You know, in 2008, the borough president put forward a task force calling for the completion of the Greenway, the Harlem Hudson River Greenway, and the Putnam Greenway. So all of these things have again and again always been brought up. We can go to the next page. In the BOA, which was the Brownfield Opportunities area nomination report that Bronx Council for Environmental Quality put together, again highlighted the importance of the Harlem River Greenway and the potential for the Putnam Greenway. So again, plans after plans. All right, we can go, Karen. Just a little example, what we're talking about of reshaping our waterfront. This is Mill Pond Park in CB4, the first waterfront park to be built on the Harlem River since Roberto Clemente State Park over 50 years ago, and a before and after picture of the park. We can go to the next page. This is happening across the city. The city has committed to spending under de Blasio, spending $776 million to complete a greenway around the border of Manhattan. They've committed over $260 million to a East River Greenway, which actually turned out to be closer to $600 or $700 million in the end to complete that. It was just opened this fall. So the amount of money that city is putting in other boroughs across the city is really enormous. You can go to the next page. Brooklyn and Queens were included in what was called Destination Greenways, and a little known fact, developing greenways throughout Brooklyn and Queens. And we can go to the next page. What about the Bronx, right? Where was our destination greenways for the Bronx? So we can go to the next page. So in reality, the Bronx was supposed to be included in destination greenways, but because of the complexity of the Putnam acquisition and of the properties along the Harlem River, the city at that time decided that it was no longer possible to include the Bronx into this. So obviously we advocated at that moment to include that. So we shared that there was a tale of two cities happening, right? CXX donated 3rd Avenue and the final sections of the elevated railroad to build that next section of the High Line. And we struggled for a decade for CXX to give us the Putnam Greenway. We can go on to next slide. So why the Putnam Greenway, and why are we bringing this to Community Board 8? So what you're looking at in front of you is the reason why we're bringing it, and why we're bringing it to the Parks Department, but to the Parks Committee. So if you look at this section, this is the missing section. So the Putnam Greenway as it stands right now is extending from Van Cortlandt Park down to 230th Street. We've negotiated with the developer who is developing Fordham Landing, and they've committed to getting us a path from their development over to the target property on 225th Street at the edge of CB8 and CB7. But there's a stretch from 230th Street to 225th Street that's owned not by CXX, but owned by MTA, that it was originally supposed to be transferred to Park as part of the ULURP process, but MTA has now decided that they want to utilize this property for management of trash from Westchester, from Long Island, from Connecticut, and from Manhattan. So for their entire region, they want to manage trash in the Bronx, in District 7 and District 8 in this property. And that is why they're saying they will not honor these original conversations that were had, where they noted that MTA would continue to maintain these tracks until at least 2013, after which time Department of Parks and Recreation is planning to lease this property from the MTA for the purpose of creating another segment of the Greenway that will connect to the current proposal. So it was not to be a part of the original ULURP, but it was to be a part of future negotiations. Since then, MTA has backed off, said that they're not willing to do that. And we don't need to go through any more of the pages, Karen, I think. I just wanted to, point out that, so we
If you can go
are,
back one, where it
Yes.
says DOT thinks the Bronx does not need the waterfront.
right.
It's important.
Well, right. So we are currently, what I wanted to share is we're currently working with DOT and the mayor's office to envision a Harlem River Greenway that the mayor and the DOT is committed that will connect us from Randall's Island to Van Cortlandt Park. The problem is that without this Putnam Greenway connections, what we're currently working on with the city, and I recommend that everyone comes out to the April 3rd, which is the northern section, including Community Board 7, 8, 5, and 4, and April 8th, which includes Community Boards 4 and 1. We recommend that people come out to this because what DOT is talking about right now is the on-street connections to the Greenway and alternatives to the Putnam Greenway, which would mean on Exterior Street, on Sedgwick Avenue, on Bailey Avenue, or perhaps on Broadway. So all of these things are currently going to impact this Community Board 8. And I think it's important for us to have alternatives to Tibbetts, but it doesn't include this issue that we're trying to bring to your attention as the Parks Department. And so this original ULURP was created by Parks to transfer the CXX property from Parks, from CXX to the city to be parkland. And we're recommending that this committee take up this issue because we shouldn't have this 5-block break. We should have a continuous greenway, which will keep bikes and pedestrians and families that want to use the greenway off of Bailey Avenue, off of Broadway, which are the only alternatives if you don't have this access. So that's really what we're sharing with you today. And I wanted to, ask folks to participate in the April 3rd and April 8th meetings if possible. But really, as this committee, I think we really need to advocate that Parks continues to advocate for this property as was part of the original ULURP plan in 2011, over 13 years ago, to make this a continuous greenway and not have it truncated at 230th Street. So that's sort of my presentation. And, I do, if you could, Karen, go flip to the Harlem River. If you go down a couple of the slides, I did want to say, just to invite people, and I can put this in the chat too, but.
We don't have a chat.
Yeah, oh, that's right. There's not chat here. So, I'm just sharing this. There's many ways we plan to reconnect people.
This was the original
to-
plan. This was the original plan from 230th to 225th Street.
Okay.
Keep going, Karen. Just keep moving down.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
All right. So, we've done.
I missed it.
Okay, so right there, right there, Karen, the meeting, just I wanted to share that we have our bi-monthly meeting tomorrow of the Harlem River Working Group from 6 to 8. So I just wanted to share that, and I can share the Zoom. Bob, you could share the link with folks if people are interested in participating, but we're really open to anyone participating, giving your voice, your thoughts, and your concerns, because, you know, we are talking about trying to transform our community in a positive way and give access to our waterfront that our community has been kept from decades. But, you know, we also want to hear any concerns that people have in this process with the Department of Transportation, with parks, because we all are community members. So that's what I had to share, and I'm here for questions. Bob, if you want to add anything, Karen, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, Chauncey, just remind everybody of the canoeing petition that you're circulating also.
Right,
Because we're
thank you,
trying to
Bob.
build
So,
waterfront concession access.
yes, we're actually approaching parks around this, hopefully in the future, CB8 through the property that's being developed on CB7 with Dynamic Star. Dynamic Star has committed to making waterfront access as part of their project. They want to create a ferry dock, which, you know, mixed thoughts around, but it could be good. But they also want to do canoeing, kayaking, and private boats. Right now on the Harlem River, there's not a single space in the Bronx where you can get access to the water in a public space. So we all know that we've done Riverfest in Community Ward 8 throughout the years, and we're using private facilities of the college to do that. But along the length of the Harlem River, there's no publicly accessible New York City property where people can get out into a boat. There's no free kayaking, no free canoeing programs for Bronx residents, and we're trying to address that inequity. So we currently do have a petition going for kayaking and canoeing in CB4, CB5 in Bridge Park, which is the newest park that's being built on the waterfront, and due to the Oak Point link is one of the few places where people can get down to the waterfront right now. In CB8, there's very few spaces you can get to the waterfront, and so these are things that we're trying to address, is, you know, creating more access, not just for Greenway but also for recreational boating, and so we do have a petition out to New York City parks around that.
So, and I would like to just add that, I would like if the committee could ask and get support from the community board to make that area into a park, the area from 225th Street to 233, or 230th Street to 225th Street. And that, you know, it be, they try as much as possible to do the same thing that they did with the rest of the Putnam. Because at that time, it was not a park, and they made it into a park as part of the ULURP. The ULURP was to make it into a park, and then they figured out how to purchase it. But in order to show how important that piece of land and that connection is, it would be nice for the board to have a position on that.
Yeah. So my first question is just what does it connect to? Like from 230th, when you get to the end of 225th, then what's the route?
100%. So when we get to 225th, one thing is 225th versus 230th Street is very different in terms of safety. We all know 230th Street is the access to the Deegan Expressway there, so it's a much busier street. It's actually part of, and it's a positive reason why people should be at the April 3rd meeting, because they are looking at trying to do a redesign right now on Bailey Avenue, because crossing north to south on Bailey Avenue, you currently can't do that on the west side of the street. You have to cross over to the east side of the street, cross the street, and then cross back. There's no legal safe way to cross the street. You know, you have to, the whole length of 230th Street is not safe to cross due to the on-ramps and off-ramps of the Deegan Expressway. 225th Street is a much safer access point. It brings you right to the target property. So,
Oh, I guess we lost him. And he'll be back.
Tell you about the link between the developer's easement that they're producing.
there for a second.
Yeah,
Okay,
Chauncey,
he's
come
back.
back and talk about 225th. Yeah, sorry.
225th Street, brings you right to Target property. Target property has a road that goes alongside the back of their property. And Dynamic Star, this whole development, the only way this development can happen is by creating a northern exit from the property on Fordham Landing. There's currently only one ramp that goes down on the north side of the Fordham Landing Bridge to get to this property that's going to have hundreds of apartments, multi-use commercial space, residential space, and waterfront activities. So their design incorporates the Putnam Greenway into it, and a roadway through to the Target property. So once you get to 225th Street and to Target, you will have a path that will connect you directly to the Harlem River Greenway. So we've been negotiating. We were just in a meeting last week with DEP, Dynamic Star, Parks Department, talking about, they actually wanted to, they're so excited about the daylighting of Tibbetts Brook that they're trying to figure out a way to daylight the brook. It has to go into a tube at 230th Street, actually 232nd Street. The daylighted Tibbetts goes into a tube and goes underneath the railroad property. Dynamic Star really wants to highlight the beauty of the daylighting project. So they actually are trying to figure out and incorporate into their project how they can re-daylight the brook when it comes out onto their project. So that's something that they haven't gotten an agreement yet with DEP, but they don't really want it to go into a tunnel and get lost, and then combined with the storm overflow on heavy rain days. So it is really important working with this developer, but also the connection is there, is what I want to say.
So, Chauncey, so from 225th, then would it basically run alongside of the Deegan, or would you kind of keep going on the west
It's
side of the
gonna do a-
Deegan down? I don't know,
Gonna
where's
do
the
a
Fordham
flyover
Landing?
right there where you're clicking on. Yeah, so it would do a flyover. That building there, that white that building right there that you're touching right there, Karen.
Mhm.
That is people see it every time you drive up and down the Deegan Expressway. It's a brick building covered with graffiti.
Yeah, no
That's
windows.
no windows. That's an old power station that's been decommissioned. So Dynamic Star has gotten permission from MTA to demolish that and build a ramp, a flyover ramp that will
Oh,
bring
ramp.
cars, bikes, and pedestrians across the railroad tracks, and then yes, running alongside the Target property and connecting to 230th Street.
Okay.
That's incredible. So just to, a reference here is that the developer has experience in waterfront greenway development in the city of Washington. And the city of Washington, it's called Washington Wharf, and they actually did incorporate engineered wetlands because DC is under the same consent decree as New York City is to clean its rivers. So this particular design firm has deep experience with integrating CSO reduction and water quality into its public space. We are just gifted to have this particular group here. Not only the developer, but the designer that's working on it. He's actually worked with the daylighting equivalent.
Yeah, they're world-class designers. You've never heard me in 20 years, say that I'm happy to work with a developer on the waterfront. We've struggled in CB4 and CB1 where they have cut off community access to the waterfront and really developed properties there that are for private waterfronts for their buildings that they're developing. But Dynamic Star is really seeing this as a community network hub where they're reconnecting people to the waterfront and connecting, they're paying for the plans to right now to build the plans from 225th Street to 230th Street. They can't build it, but they're paying architects to design it so that they can share it with Parks, DEP, and with the MTA and Metro North to show that it's possible to do that Greenway path. So they're a real partner. I've never said that I was happy with a developer, but this one is very, very impressive how far they're willing to go to support this project.
And Chauncey, full disclosure, there were parks planned for Fordham Landing. So, we are getting development,
Yes.
but, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Dynamic Stars
required.
is the developer of Fordham Landing?
Correct.
They're the same people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've got a
Yes.
commitment from the MTA to build the bridge over the tracks?
Yes, they do.
That's astonishing. It really is.
Yeah, Bob.
They bought
Yeah.
they bought the property from CSX, so they know how to talk to these people.
Oh, wow.
So this just makes that strategic link so important, because we can actually get from 225th to, I would say, Roberto Clemente along the water. Once we go through Fordham Landing.
How far down does Fordham, like, where is the Fordham Landing development?
Boundary of Fordham Landing, Karen?
It's connected, the Fordham, first of all, if you didn't have a connection, you would have to go on 230th Street, and the next time you could get to any place would be at Fordham Road over here. But
Right.
in addition, right now, the Dynamic Star is building a building here, which the Community Board 7, when I was the chairperson, passed many, like 100 years ago. And over here, they're going to have the Greenway along the edge and connect to Roberto Clemente. We help
They're
them.
gonna be at Fordham Road and then south of it.
Right.
And then,
Yes.
then there's gonna be just a greenway going all the way between Fordham Road up to the Target?
So yes, exactly. We've met with, so there's a small, they own up to a very small portion along right before Roberto Clemente. They own at they own all that property with a small portion. Sorry, I'm in an in-person event. I stepped out of it to this. They own, there's a small section that's owned by Con Edison and a small section that's owned by Metro North. We did a joint meeting with Dynamic Star, Metro North, the state park, and Con Edison to make an agreement so that this property can be built, so we can get the greenway just right along the edge of the tracks, all the way to their property. So we've already made that agreement with the state park, with Con Edison, and with MTA. So that connection is a future connection. So once the southern part of their property is developed, because the southern portion, as Karen mentioned, has been approved for decades. That southern part will be developed first, and included in that southern connection will be the connection to the state park.
Right.
The second section is going to need more approval. It's going to take longer. But the first part that will be developed is the southern section, and along with the greenway, which exists right now and stops at the top of Roberto Clemente. So the moment they do that development, it goes up, and then it will be, as their project continues. By the time the Putnam's completed, I think their project will likely be completed also. Private versus public.
Yeah, so south of Roberto Clemente is Bridge Park North, which is DPR.
Right,
Okay.
that part I did the tour
Yep.
with.
Okay. And then
It goes all the way
Right.
South
down.
of Bridge Park North is a brand-new park that BECQ and the Harlem River Working Group advocated for decades, Bridge Park South. So there are twins on either side of the aqueduct, okay?
Bridge Park,
Yeah. Then it will connect, correct, Chauncey, to Mill Pond, or through the Yankee
Not yet.
Stadium Dome?
Yes, so we're gonna be
No, you
connecting
have to
at
get
this
out.
point. We're
You have
gonna,
you have to get out at Depot Place because when.
Yeah, you have to get out at
Right,
Depot
right,
Place.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
probably be
Owns this.
running,
So MTA at High Bridge, yeah.
Again, I'm
Yep.
here.
Where is the dividing line between Community Board 8 and Community Board 7? Is it 225th Street?
Yes.
South side of,
225th Street, 225th Street. That's why it is a border between the two community boards, which is why we really wanted to bring this attention to you, because 225th to 230th Street is really in
Right.
your space. Yeah.
Good.
so I want to say that whatever we decide to do as a board, we want to get support for every community board, because they're all beneficiaries of our action, okay, whatever we decide to do, because they will have a connection to the Putnam Greenway that they don't have now, okay? Because the Putnam Greenway will off-ramp at 230th and go Bailey, and then potentially up to Cedar, which is very high, you know, and Sedgwick, which is very high from the water. So we want to make sure other community boards join in whatever we do. They can pass, like, mimic our resolution of some kind, so that the entire West Bronx knows that we all have a stake in this connection. This is just a crucial link. I think it's strategic site 8 in the BOA plan, and we really do. We are the ones to start the ball rolling here when it comes to getting community board support up and down.
And how wide is this corridor?
The MTA?
Yeah, the 230th to 225th, like how wide is that?
Yeah, good question.
It is.
Now,
It is planned for a space. We could give you the exact dimensions of it, but even if there's portions of it that are owned by Metro North, there's portions of it that are owned by the DOT. And so there are various ways, even if they were to not work with us, that we could potentially work along with the property right along the edge of the Deegan is actually DOT property. But obviously, there
so
are some places in the Putnam where
but
you don't
this-
have to be
this
there. I'm
piece
sorry,
of-
Karen, speak up.
This piece of land is 40 by 40 feet wide by 1,164 feet long.
And then is it level with the Deegan at that point, or is it higher or lower? I know that the Deegan has different relationships at different points with the Putnam.
I have a little video I could show. Would you like to see my
I think
little
it's
video?
about even,
Yeah,
right?
you could show.
Let me
yeah.
show the
It's
video.
some parts it's lower. Some parts it's lower.
that the one with the music, Karen?
Yeah, a little bit of music. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know what happened to it. Oh, I left it on the man.
I think you can find it on YouTube.
It is on YouTube, right?
We're kind of obsessed. I need to state for the record that I'm
Well, it's just this one missing piece. It's one missing piece that really will make all the difference in this project. It doesn't make sense to develop the Putnam Greenway only to 230th Street and then stop before it links to the rest of the Greenway. It really is the Putnam Greenway and the Harlem River Greenway.
I'm trying to find the thing.
it's the handshake is what he's
Right.
saying. It's the
So
handshake.
in terms of process, maybe it would be good to pivot just to process for a minute.
Okay.
Because I know that in some of the meetings we've had with the Parks Department regarding the Tibbetts Brook daylighting and the building of the park, they were very kind of adamant, like, it's gonna stop here.
Yeah.
And this part's a different thing, a different
Right.
project.
Absolutely, yeah.
So where is, what is it, it seems like it's already started, there's some ULURP discussion that's already happened, like how do you kick that discussion off?
Well, I'm gonna give you two answers, okay? One is personal and political, and the other is the city charter.
There you go,
So,
Bob.
the city charter enjoins an agency to make a request to city planning, okay, to issue a ULURP. They file a ULURP application, and that's actually in the city charter, that an agency is the applicant to Department of City Planning, okay? And they have to decide whether they are going to accept the application. Now, DEP recently did the exact same thing. They were the applicant to DCP to create a ULURP application. DCP created the application with the collaboration of DP and passed it on to CPC, which authorized it and then sent it to Community Board as a ULURP, okay? And we did that a month ago. So, only an agency can ask for a ULURP, okay? And
The first question.
Yeah,
Is there have to be any money or budget in place before the agency can ask for
No,
anything?
no.
This is a planning step.
correct.
Okay.
They have to make a proposal for the city to lease or acquire, okay? And that proposal to lease or acquire, I would say began, Karen, for CSX, probably began in 2008, 2009, before the ULURP for the CSX was actually approved in 2011. So,
2011, exactly.
and then the 2011 was really the start of a financial negotiation that culminated last year, and is still not completed, by the way. But that's an example of a ULURP without a price tag, okay? So the ULURP does not entail a cost along with it. There is no price embedded in the ULURP, okay? There was not a price embedded in the DEP one, and there is not one embedded in the 2011 ULURP, okay? That, at that point, when it becomes the resolution of the city, when the city council approves it, okay, then the city enjoins the corp council to negotiate with an outside person to lease or acquire, okay? And what they are doing is creating public real estate, okay, parkland, okay, and that's what Karen was saying, that this proposal is to expand parkland, okay? Not just access, not open space, which Chauncey will tell you is the private developer's requirement to build 40 feet of esplanade and decorative planting along a waterfront. Okay, that's what you see now in Mott Haven and in Highbridge where people are developing. That is not what we're talking about. That is a requirement of waterfront developers to build 40 feet of esplanade. Okay, we have found there have been several places, especially in, Chauncey Community Board 1, Bankside, where they've closed off the privately operated park, okay, privately owned park, it's called a POP. And so, we cannot let developers control the waterfront. We are giving literally our birthright away, to developers. So, we do need public property, that's parkland, and more of it. Now, the personal and political issue I wanted to bring up is that I found, and again, I want to state for the record that I am a board member and currently president of BCQ, so I'm speaking now from our efforts for BCQ. We have found, and Bob, you'll back me up here, that these are human beings, and they do things.
With the developers or the Parks Department?
Big decision makers, parks.
Everybody.
Everyone's a human being. And sometimes they don't do what we think they should do because, you know what? They're not asked. No one asked them to do something. When we met with MTA a year ago, and we were saying, why are you involved in giving us to 25th? And Andrew was at that meeting, I forget his last name, at MTA, and he said, nobody from the city has asked us. That's why we're not giving this property away. Nobody has asked us for this to build a greenway. And so sometimes you need to ask. It's so elementary school, but sometimes you need to ask. This is the ask. And ULURP is the beginning of the ask. So in a lot of ways, no one's actually used that lever. And I don't know why not. And it's on me too, because I never thought of this until I realized I was desperate. So we said we need to make the ask and see what happens. And it would be great if just that ask made them debate and fight with DEP. Oh, we're going to do public access. No, we're going to do public access. So it would be great if they had that jump ball, okay? Because we are talking about the same tax lot. Okay? So it would be great if, once again, there was a conjoining of the daylighting and the greenway. Right now, they're at 230th, basically, they diverged. The daylighting project and greenway diverged. We want to conjoin them. And the way to do that is to have parks make their claim on parkland. And you have to think about it in the most simple terms. Nobody asked them.
What happens to the Tibbetts Greenway, or the Tibbetts daylighting, tube, the tube of water? What happens to 225th for that? Because there's kind of a box.
There's a bunker.
There's a bunker that's semi above the ground.
Yes.
Does that just go all the way to the river's edge, or does it eventually go underground
That goes
completely?
underground, and then it goes to the outfall. But Chauncey's telling us, he has his hand up, by the way, that one. Chauncey's telling us that they might daylight it.
I think that's,
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the, I'm sorry. I thought that was Chauncey.
He has a big hand, and that was a big
Yeah, I
hand,
thought he customized it, yeah. But it sounds like there may actually be daylighting beyond,
Right, that they would like to make
on-
it a
on
park
the 190,
element.
it's, you
No,
know,
no, they didn't
basically
agree,
190.
they didn't agree to it, they were just discussing it.
They're just
Apparently, the
discussing it, but-
pipe is so deep by the time it gets to the water that would be hard to bring the water back up.
Yeah.
It's almost certainly gonna
That's
have
the
to go under.
complication, that's the complication that they're sharing, is that it's so deep. But we're trying to work around that.
Right, okay.
Anyway, so,
So then the ask is to the Parks Department.
yes.
And then I assume it's the
Capital.
the commissioner of the Parks Department, or like, you know?
There's a planning division. There's a
Yeah,
planning
Jennifer
division.
Greenfield is gonna be your new best friend.
Oh, okay.
They have capital planning division.
Is she in charge of capital planning now?
She moved over when Liam left.
Natural areas.
Yeah, so she took over from Liam's job.
Oh,
No,
Yeah.
no, but capital planning is not, Jennifer, but she's good, you can ask her.
Oh, is she the person that what we're talking about is the resolution, right?
Yeah.
And is she the person that like, who do we direct the resolution to? Like, who's
Maybe
the
it should,
audience?
maybe it should be the commissioner, maybe it should be the commissioner.
I was gonna say that it should be the Commissioner of Parks.
So Jennifer Greenfield's kind of the point of contact or whatever with.
Yeah.
but that's for them to decide.
Exactly,
We-
but-
Yeah, we
We go to the top.
Go to the agent.
Community Board, once Julie Reyes' signature is on it, she speaks to the city commissioner.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know that you
Then-
really need to do a very detailed resolution because, you know, there's many options that could happen with the land. It could be the Metro North land, like Chauncey was saying, it could be there's a whole bunch of, there's a big space of land that belongs to the Major Deegan Expressway. And then if you just dream, it could be the storage place and we can make that into a real park. And it'll be like a landing place with bathrooms and things that, you know, would be very nice.
Yeah, Karen, I agree, and in what I gave you, Deb, I would embargo this for you to work out more general language, because a terrible mistake would be to narrow the ask so that it's easily dismissed if it's unfeasible.
Right.
The correct thing to do is to make it general enough to make them negotiate on the best route possible. So,
Because the
therefore-
original drawing is the area where the storage place is. And
Yeah,
it
okay,
meanders,
got it.
it's a meandering path.
Good
So,
point. Yeah, so Deb, I would ask for your edit of the therefore be it resolved, the second one, therefore be it further resolved. And it's too narrow defining as the MTA property, but we just want to say, run from 230th to 225th, where it's that effect.
Right. So the therefore be it resolved right now is therefore be it resolved that Bronx Community Board 8 supports the extension of the Putnam Greenway as outlined in the 2011 ULURP authorization for the purpose of creating a continuous linear greenway along the Harlem River. So is
as
that
parkland,
part of-
it needs to say
Yeah.
as parkland.
Okay,
Continuous, okay, so would it make better sense to say for the purposes of creating a continuous park along the Harlem River?
yes.
Public park.
Public,
No,
yes.
let's, because all of that is not parkland, and again, they're gonna say, oh, it's not parkland. I think we should just add as parkland for the purpose of creating continuous linear greenway along the Harlem River as parkland.
Right, so therefore be it resolved, supports the extension of the Putnam Greenway as outlined in the 2011 ULURP authorization. That part, we want to narrow it, that?
Yeah, for the purpose of creating a continuous linear, do you want to say park?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then, yeah.
We definitely want parkland. We want it to be parkland. That's the ULURP.
Right,
Right.
Public parkland.
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
Park and
good,
parkland are the same thing.
yeah, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
just park, or park, is parkland something that we need to make a distinction?
Yes,
Park-
yeah, that's their real estate designation.
So it's
for
a
their property.
Continuous
Linear.
parkland.
Yes. That's it, linear parkland along the Harlem River. They have a whole thing called Parkland Division. And they audit and they control all the property. Okay, so that's a good word to use.
Okay. And so therefore, be it further resolved, the Bronx Community Board 8 calls upon the New York City Department of Parks to initiate the process of submitting a ULURP application for lease, purchase, or easement of the currently owned MTA property running along the
Where we're gonna
track.
change, yeah.
Yeah.
Or any
Um,
other property, MTA property or any other.
Of currently owned empty or any other property. It
Or
is
if
the
not
old
feasible,
putt.
or if not feasible, any other property that is adjacent.
But we are talking about the old
Seems
putt.
like we need to be more general.
Yeah, we're talking about the old Putnam Railroad, not the old Putnam Trail, right?
Yeah, the Putnam Trail is the rail-to-trail conversion of the old putt railroad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's along the tracks of the old Putnam Railroad.
It is, yes, it is.
Okay,
It's the old
so
Putnam.
the, or any, I think we should just say other currently owned or any other or any adjoining property.
All right, where is this?
This is,
the second
lease,
before be it resolved.
purchase, or easement of the currently owned MTA property or any adjoining property running along the tracks of the old Putnam Trail.
Would we use a more broad, like
Sure.
acquire?
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of lease, purchase, or easement, just simply.
Acquire is
submitting
purchase.
A
Don't,
ULURP.
don't say only, acquirements purchase.
Just purchase.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And those are technical terms for them, lease
Yeah.
and easement.
But are there any other options that we're leaving out, or are there only options to lease, purchase, or get an easement?
I think easement is, Karen, trying to see any other options besides purchase, lease, or easement?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Along the track. Old Putnam Railroad. West 230th and West 225th. To the New York City Department.
I think we don't
I
need the
think we've
last
covered
one.
it all.
Or is it, or we need to maybe move it up so that it's calls upon the New York City Department of Parks to initiate the process of submitting a ULURP to the New York City Department of Planning.
Thank you. Let's move that clause.
Is that, and then what it is, and then in compliance with any and all rules of standard outline law.
Very good. That's great.
Can we just make that instead of any and all rules, which seems to me just incredibly broad, can we just say something like all relevant rules and standards?
That's good. Okay.
Outlined by. All right. And then for the rest of the whereases, is it necessary to have the whole history like this?
I think it's important to cite the 2011 ULURP.
Yeah, for sure. That part we're referencing.
Okay.
And then the New York City Charter defines the land use review procedure for acquisition of real property other than acquisition of office space for office use or a building for office use, including acquisition by purchase, blah, blah, blah.
That's
I
a
think we
bit
can cut
much.
that down. I think let's cut that down.
Yes, you don't need it. They know what the process is. We don't have to get into it. Or you don't have to get into
Okay,
it.
we can take out that whole second whereas. I just wanted to make it's more for the committee, I guess, to know that the agency is the actor here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really informational for the, community board.
So we could keep it, but we can shorten it.
Could we summarize it? I mean, the same way that you kind of did at the beginning, right?
Sure.
Whereas section 2.01K of the New York City Charter, defines the land use review procedure as beginning with an agency requesting a or something.
Okay. Defines the land, we should just say that defines, the land use procedure as, let's see.
It still looks to me too much like we're telling them what the rules are for the ULURP, when, of course, they know what the rules are for the ULURP, because that's exactly what we're asking them to do.
Okay, so Bob, do you think we don't need it?
Yeah, I think it's relevant to explain to the community board,
So we
Okay.
know,
but not to explain to the Parks Department,
Okay.
which
Right.
already knows.
So
it.
Deb, then you would say, why is DPR doing it?
Right.
You would answer. Okay, so we're gonna
Right.
strike that whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
whereas the route for the Putnam Greenway as preliminarily approved by the New York City Public Design Commission in September or August.
I'm sorry,
No,
that,
it's fine.
and, when was the PDC?
But do we need to say as preliminarily approved? Isn't it approved at this point?
No, it's not
Still
final.
Finalized? Okay.
They have one more step.
Why do you have to have
Um,
anything to do with the Public Design Commission?
Because, okay, we don't even need to do that. Because the
Try to
Putnam
make it simple.
Whereas the planned route.
will end, whereas the route for the Putnam Greenway will end at West 230th Street.
Right.
um,
You know, this could take
Continue.
years to happen, so why are we putting something in that's not gonna be important at that point?
Don't make it time stamped, okay.
Yeah, whereas the planned route of the Putnam Greenway will end at West 230th Street and continue southbound along Upland.
On the streets,
Along New York City Department, city streets that are far from the
You don't
Harlem.
even need upland or inland, it's just
No.
along New York City,
Will continue along
New York City Department city
Right.
streets, okay,
Continue,
that are far from the Harlem River waterfront.
far from the Harlem River waterfront. And then I would get rid of without the easement of MTA property described in
Okay,
blah, blah,
just
blah.
stating a fact, yeah.
Just stating a fact. And whereas the continuation of the Putnam Greenway south of West 230th will bring needed recreation opportunities to the Marble Hill community, the most disadvantaged census tract in the Bronx Community 8.
We don't need environmental justice area designated by the city of New York.
Mhm.
You can take that out.
I think we want to say the most economically disadvantaged.
Yep.
I think that's
That's a good
what it really is about.
good point.
And provide access to the future Harlem River Greenway. And whereas the continuation.
Why don't we just say the plan has Harlem River Greenway?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds a little better,
Yeah,
a little more realistic.
right, doesn't sound like the dream of the
Right,
Harlem
exactly.
River.
Do we need a whereas that says that the city is undertaking a Harlem River Greenway planning process now? To let people know that this is a live thing and it's kind of stepping into a context.
Mhm.
That's a good point, Bob, because the city already has the RAISE grant to do the study for the Greenway. I mean,
Yeah.
the study is underway.
Well, it just means it's not an airy thing that we're just catching up on. It's a real-life process that needs this link. So
Well, I think that would go really nicely between whereas the planned route for the Putnam Greenway, blah, 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 and then whereas the continuation of the Putnam Greenway south. I think if it went right in between,
Correct.
that would be a natural kind
Yeah.
of,
Whereas, and right now, Chauncey, it's solely the Department of City Planning, but they are working with EDC and, DPR. They are partners.
Who is?
So we're, Department of City
talking about?
Planning is the
We're
Harlem
talking
River
about
Greenway planning.
We're talking, Karen, about the
DP
RAISE
and
grant.
Parks.
Don't get involved with another agency, just stay
Yeah,
with the Parks
Yeah,
Department.
just stay with parks, just stay
But
with
now you're
parks.
going to another one of your committees. Don't mess up anything, just do one
Yeah,
thing.
I would say just simply, maybe we could just say really simply, whereas the, Harlem River Greenway is currently being, in the community,
New York City is committed to building,
committed to
planning.
building and planning the
Yeah,
Harlem
Harlem River
Greenway,
Greenway.
and is in the
That's it.
community
Yeah.
input, yeah.
Yeah, if you say one agency, it leaves this committee and gets
Right.
sidelined into a cul-de-sac, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't want to complicate it. I agree.
Simple,
And
simple,
as
simple.
soon as you have another agency, then it becomes, a football, say, you take a hot potato, you
Yeah.
take it.
Whereas, the city of New York is committed to building and planning the Harlem River Greenway, and is in the community community.
Yeah, just,
Just
yeah.
that. Okay. Anything else on this thing? Oh, we have one last, whereas the continuation of the Putnam Greenway south of 230th along the route of the former Putnam Railroad is integral to the success of the Putnam Greenway as planned within and from Van Cortlandt Park, and is described as a priority project for the borough and a significant opportunity to expand the off-road greenway system, providing,
You can cut that down, I just want you to see that
yeah.
in 2007, in 2007, the, this particular link south of 230th was described as a priority project. Okay, so whatever you need to do to say, they realized that they had nowhere to go after Putnam. I'm sorry, after CSX.
Bob, is the 2007 Bronx Greenway Plan different from the 2008 Borough President's Task Force on the Harlem and Hudson Greenways?
I believe,
Or it may be the same thing?
I think it's the same thing. What is the publication date of the Carry-On Greenway Plan? I thought it was 2007, but it could be 2008. I have it,
Chauncey said 2008.
I have it at home, I have the original.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Deb, I'll fact check that for you.
Mhm.
But, anything, yeah,
So kind of like, whereas this section was described as a priority project for the borough, as far back as 2007.
yeah.
Mhm.
Since 1993, so it was a priority since 1993 from the Bronx Greenway Plan from Ferrer. So you can go back from 1993. It was included in that plan.
The language, though, is priority project came up.
Right? No. Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but Chauncey, that was a citywide greenways map in 1993.
Yes,
Which,
it
as you
was.
know, is currently being revised or being updated.
Right.
30 years
Yes,
later.
indeed. 30 years later, we were part of that. Yes, indeed.
The last comprehensive citywide greenway plan was the Dinkins administration. That's incredible.
Chauncey, how long is the planned Harlem River Greenway from 225th Street down to the end, in
Randall's Island.
Randall's Island? How many miles is that?
It's 7 miles. It's 7 miles from Van Cortlandt to Randall's Island.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, it must be
Maybe
more
we
than
can
that.
say something like, whereas this section was described as a priority project for the borough as far back as 2007 and provides a vital connection between the Northwest Bronx and Randall's Island, 7 miles south.
That's great. In the 2007 Bronx Greenway Plan.
I'm gonna measure it.
That it was,
That'll keep you busy, Karen.
yeah, the borough, yeah.
No, Zola is gonna do it. I'm not doing anything.
I should get out there with your pedometer.
Yeah, that would be
And some
interesting.
water.
And a lot of water, right.
Okay, so then I think what I'll do is, if that's kind of the bulk of the language, I'll just make all the edits,
Yeah.
and then we'll send it back out, and then we'll put it in the agenda for next month, and then we can do a vote next
Very
month
nice.
when we get back together.
I won't be voting on it, but I'm very happy you're doing this. Thank you.
So, yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally, that'll be, and then is there a like, I don't have any connections to CB7 per se.
We'll
I mean, I guess I have some, because it actually is.
So we
Is that
invite,
Barbara Stronzer?
Yeah, it's Barbara,
So,
right. Yes, Barbara.
Okay.
Chauncey also gathers whole groups together, and if you, or Julie, when this is actually passed, came to a Harlem River Working Group meeting, you would have an audience there for everybody of what you've done here to make this link. That would be very powerful. Because it's a model. It's really a model. It's a step forward to get parks involved in this acquisition.
Then so we'll put this together and we get the vote, but then we need to, so what is the resolution then?
It's
that
11
needs
miles. 11
Ooh,
miles.
11 miles.
It's
What we would
10.7. It's 10.7 miles, but it's,
Yeah, what BCQ does on a regular basis is provide public
Language.
comment, and, you know, we lobby for boards to take action, and we will go to every community board with this as an example of what they could do and explain.
we don't
Um,
lobby, we're not getting paid for anything, we advocate.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
So
Advocate.
CB7 is the
Is our
bridge that
next stop.
goes over,
Yes.
and then that's all in
So
CB7?
CB7 is historically the driver of the community-based waterfront planning. They were great. They contributed a lot to the original BOA plan that came out in 2013. BCQ did. So you will find a very informed, receptive audience there.
Yeah, I mean, Barbara's been great. Like, I presented to Community Board 7 when we were advocating for the Parks Enforcement Patrol Command in Van Cortlandt Park.
Yeah.
And she was very gracious to allow me to speak to that committee and to explain why we were supporting it, and then they also did a resolution as well, so,
Okay,
you know.
so you're gonna
happy to-
become, you're gonna be
Yeah,
the name.
I'm happy to support.
And it means the world, I have to say, it means the world that 8 is speaking for the Greenway, because it is the one affected and can tell everybody about, you all win, you take this, if you get this link made.
So what's timing look like? And so, you know, when this has to happen by the summer, it has to happen by the end of 2024? Like the
No.
resolution, you know, we could get something done probably before the end of this board year.
End of the term.
But what about CB7 or the other CBs? Is that kind of a project that BCEQ is
We're
working
working
on?
Yeah, we're working on
Yeah,
everybody.
The Harlem River Working Group is going to go, you know, board by board, BCQ is gonna help us, you know, we're all the same.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna try to do that.
Yeah, so we're gonna be providing kind of an abbreviated version of what Chauncey did, maybe in a, you know, 2 or 3, front and back, steps, why you, that kind of thing, background, and what you can do. So, we're definitely we have kind of a campaign built up to do this.
And also, it's very important because, as you know, somebody's gonna have to take care of this greenway. And we all have to be, you know, on top of that. All these community boards, we have to make sure that somebody takes care of it. And not just
So we,
volunteers.
we have had unofficial conversations with parks officials on this, but, this will put it in official purpose now, and I think it's gonna start a conversation for
Right.
something that really should have happened at 2013 as described in the ULURP.
And so then Dynamic Star, I'm just gonna ask for the last bit that's Community Board 8 related. So, you know, there's been talk of doing the southern piece, but so Dynamic Star wants to stop at they don't have any interest in continuing to the Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big, big connection. That's pretty far between, where they are and the Hudson.
Right.
You've gotta go through Marble Hill and Spike and Ivel to get over there.
You got a ways.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point you can have a Hudson River Greenway
Hudson River
presentation
Greenway.
from someone, I don't know who would do that, but.
Right.
We have a committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
All right.
want to thank you so much for hearing this out, and Chauncey, thank you, but thank you, Deb, for hearing this out
Oh, no,
and
thank
taking
you.
this
Karen.
up.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, and Bob, and Chauncey for walking us through it, because this is, you know, technical stuff, and it's hard to know who to ask for what, so
Yeah.
I think this will be good.
We're taking this simple, direct approach here.
Right, so, well, you know, that can work sometimes.
Absolutely.
And is Chauncey still up there?
Yes.
There he
I'm
is.
here, yep,
Maybe he's-
I'm here.
Thank you, Chauncey.
All right, take care.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
See you tomorrow, Chauncey.
Oh, anytime. I appreciate you all. This is a collaborative effort, and CB8 has a pivotal role in this. So it's great that you're taking this step.
So
Thank you so much.
Chauncey's gonna send you a note, Deb, or I'll send it about the meeting for the DOT about the outside greenways.
April 3rd and April 8th.
And also,
Bob, you have the link. You could share it right there.
I'll make it happen, yeah.
Can you
Oh,
also
okay.
share the link? We didn't get to watch the link with the music, so can you share that and we'll watch
Oh,
it
yeah,
at home in our private
yeah.
time?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll send that, and I have it in an email, yes. It's only 39 seconds, it's very quick.
Yeah.
Okay, good, all right.
It's got like 7 likes on YouTube.
Well, it could have 8 if you send that around.
It's gonna be viral now. It's gonna be viral.
Oh, good.
All right, so next up is prioritizing the fiscal year 26 budget items. So can you put that up on the screen and, so we
Good night,
were,
all.
informed.
Okay,
Hey,
Good night,
Lauren.
Chauncey.
Good night,
I gotta
Chauncey.
jump on my bike, so take care.
okay.
Yeah, don't do both, don't do.
Yes, exactly. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, good night. So we were informed that we needed to get our capital budget priorities down to 5 and our expense down to 5, which, I appreciate the candor of that because it's, we do have to get all of the committee, the whole board down to, what is it, 25? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the number.
so there were some follow-up items from last month. And so they're all highlighted. I highlighted the question and now I've included the answer. So the first one was on the redesign of the Bailey Playground. David Gelman had thought that there would have been some funding from our electeds, but I checked in with the Parks capital unit. There's no funding at all. So this is still totally in play, and I still think it should be our number one priority.
Right. There has been discussion of funding, and I know Bailey is pretty much at the intersection point between Councilman Dinowitz and Councilwoman Sanchez.
Yeah.
And I know they had been talking about joint funding,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that it's gone beyond the point of discussing it.
Yeah. Well, and there's no money yet anywhere. So.
Okay, well,
So.
yeah.
And then the next one, reconstruction for park, I didn't have any follow-up questions. The basketball court resurfacing has already been funded, and then there's a construction of a restroom, which is there in the middle of that capital work. Marble Hill Playground, there was a question of, was the lighting for the pathways or the activity area? I talked to Chris Calhoun, and he said it was for both. I mean, and that makes sense, because there's no interior lighting really in that park.
And it's a small playground.
Yeah, so then we've got restoration of Lower Bruss Park. There weren't any questions. The next one is equipment for litter collection. You'll notice I crossed that off within Van Cortlandt Park. The reason for that is the next one, the equipment for litter collection within the district. So we had 2 budget priorities. One was for Van Cortlandt Park, and one was for the district. And one was a mini packer for Van Cortlandt Park and a garbage truck for the district. I thought since we can only have 5, that we would just combine it. So we have an equipment for litter collection, a mini packer, and a garbage truck. So I made the modification there. So it's an additional mini packer vehicle to reach remote areas for litter collection in Van Cortlandt Park, and 1 large garbage truck to be assigned to the district.
Good idea.
So.
How to turn 2 capital projects into one.
Yeah, Deb, if I may, you're not
I put the mini packer first in the sense.
Yeah, so you're
What
not
is that?
assigning it to the district, you'd be assigning it to the Bronx Borough?
No, there would be, the mini packer would be for litter collection in Van Cortlandt Park, so that would be the same as it was before, and then an additional large garbage truck to be assigned to the district, which was the language that we had before, which was for Joe Magnieri.
Okay, so if I may assign to each district, because we're different districts.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Should it be like this, is there a number to the district?
Yeah, we're District 13 and that's District 8.
So that's, it would be, so the mini packer goes to District 13 and the garbage
Right.
truck goes to District 8?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Is that what you're
actually,
saying?
it's just a packer. You can call it a packer. There's a mini packer and a packer.
So you want a packer?
No,
No?
the garbage truck is a packer.
Correct.
The smaller one for the park
I
is a
see.
mini packer.
I got you, okay. So if you could adjust one large garbage truck to be, one packer,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so additional mini packer, I guess vehicle doesn't need to be there, so additional mini packer to reach
You
remote,
know, it might depend on who's reading this. The Parks Department knows that a mini packer is a small garbage truck. Somebody else reading this, I don't know, an OMB might not know what that means. So I would rather be redundant and say vehicle than leave it out and somebody says, I don't know what they're talking about.
okay. To reach remote areas for litter collection in Van Cortlandt Park in District 13, and one packer vehicle then, which will just be consistent, to be assigned in District 8. Does that work? Does that make sense, Stephanie?
It does.
I
It
know,
does.
that's a
I think.
packer.
I think.
That's not a mini.
I think you could. Yes, it's fine. It's perfect.
Okay. So then, Artie, for the next one, the equipment for litter collection, you can delete that, so that's all. And then, so that constitutes the top 5. If you scroll down, there were a couple more that we, were discussing last month. So the Jerome Park Reservoir pedestrian safety lighting, reconstructing Washington's Walk, upgrading the restrooms. So this was one that Christina raised, the conversion of the nature center into like a concession with better restrooms on the side. I followed up with Christina, and maybe she wants to talk more about this, but it seemed like this was something that maybe needed to get more fleshed out and developed first before we added it to, it might be premature to add it to the budget priorities this year, but maybe this is something to consider for next year, especially if we know we need 2 packers and there's lots of other kind of high need stuff.
I have 2 questions so far, Deb. On
Yeah.
this one, if a concession, and I think Stephanie and Christina are both on the Zoom. If we turn the nature center into a concession, the city rules are that the concession money goes to the Parks Department or goes to the general fund.
Goes to the city general
Right.
fund.
The Van Cortlandt doesn't get anything out of this, except, I guess, the improved restrooms.
Well, they're in the process of possibly changing that though, correct? Like that there's been
There have been
legislation-
proposals off and on over the years, yeah, and
Yeah.
there, somebody in city council wants to change it, but, until it's changed.
Right, it's not changed until it's changed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it gets us better restrooms, that's an improvement right there. If anybody's ever used the restroom, which I have done,
Yeah.
it's,
Could get us food too. We could get a hot dog.
yeah, I mean, yes, but, well, anyway, the other one, though, that I'm a little more concerned about is on Jerome Park. I think it's the one that's just above the screen at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not DEP rather than the Parks Department? And lighting is also DOT.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that a Parks request and not a DEP or a DOT request?
So DOT, back when I was on traffic and transportation, we asked them this question. We asked DOT for this. And so DOT came out and they did a study of the lights along Goulden, and said it was appropriate for vehicles, which didn't really address that it was very, very dark on the sidewalk itself.
Right.
And so DOT said to us at the time, like, it's not a vehicle problem. And, DOT installs lighting in parks, but that this is a parks problem. Because, and the reason it's a parks problem and not DEP is that the strip around Jerome Park Reservoir, adjacent to Goulden, there's exercise equipment and stuff, that's parks land.
Mm-hmm.
And really what we would like is to have human-sized lights, the World Fair style typical park lighting.
Not the huge traffic
Not the
lights.
huge traffic lights, so that we could actually have a place to walk that's lit. And it would be in the park, along Goulden, on either side of the gatehouse.
Okay.
But I thought that
That's a
the
relatively
Parks,
small area.
I thought that the Parks
Yeah.
Department gets all their lights from the DOT anyhow, because the lights in Harris Field are always out, and you can't complain to the Parks Department, you have to put in 311.
Well, the DOT is the one who fixes it, but Parks is the one who's responsible for it.
Oh,
So it's like
okay.
you know, it's like you worked with the Parks Department to get it fixed, but they'll send DOT, and that sometimes DOT, you know,
The
takes a
company.
minute to do
Yeah,
it. Yeah, because
right.
it's in her, yeah. Yeah, Camelia?
Yeah, hi. Just, Bob, it's a very pertinent question, and maybe I can just help explain because I had a similar situation very recently. Bob, DOT only takes responsibility when the lights, responsibility, when the lights are over the roadway or sidewalks. In the case of parks, within any park, if there is a light, then parks would fix it or repair it. In the case of the proposal of Debbie, if I understood correctly, it's spaced around the reservoir that's already known as being where DEP is the main custodian, sort of say. And then if DEP, so the request is appropriately directed to DEP, but if DEP internally finds that they need a link to DOT or whatever, it's an internal subsidiary process, and they will internally connect to whatever permits or whatever they need from DOT or parks itself. But DEP remains the primary responsible if the area that Deb is addressing to is within the primary custody of DEP. Thank you.
The park part isn't though, Camelia.
Right.
Oh, then it's parks. Then
The
it's all you.
reservoir is.
Correct. So I don't know the exact area you're referring to. I couldn't hear very well, but again, it's the matter of the primary agency in whose custody it is, and they internally then arrange with the other agencies. I had a recent sinkhole on the roadway, so I immediately directed to DOT, but they said no. We actually bounced it back internally to DEP for fixing it because there was a prior whatever pipe repair. So they internally fixed this, but the primary responsible to me still stays DOT because it's on DOT roadway. So it again
Right,
depends
it's
on
the road.
the main agency that has custody over the actual land where the light is affixed.
Got you.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the establish a Parks Enforcement Patrol Command. So this one is under both capital and expense. And I thought that I made a little preliminary order, which we can debate, discuss. But that with this, I wanted to argue that the capital part of this, the vehicles or whatever, was kind of secondary to them committing to actually funding the expense part of it, which is the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like that if they need to, and so it would make more sense to have as our number one budget priority for expense, the Parks Enforcement Patrol Command in Van Cortlandt Park.
Mm-hmm.
But to take it off of the capital list for the moment, to try to put it, to give emphasis on that side of the house.
Right, okay. I mean, this, we did, Assemblyman Dinowitz tried to do something with this,
Yeah.
and the Parks Department has said no. I think this is more symbolic than anything else at this point.
Well, with considering that they don't have money to mow the lawn.
Right, yeah, right. And the problem which we're well aware of with PEP officers is that they've never been fully manned. They theoretically have 50 people for the Bronx. They've never actually had a full complement of 50 because people get on this list, and then as soon as they take the PD or the fire department test and pass, they get off because the benefits are better. So, we can put it on there. I just would never want to make it one of the top priorities.
Okay.
Deb, what's the status of the yellow, when you say conversion into a concession? I'm all for increased bathrooms, but it feels like we should have a separate discussion about whether we want a concession there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's why I
not-
felt like this
okay.
is not a budget
Yeah,
priority for this
okay.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't kind of shove it into a fiscal. Yeah.
Right, into because what if they say yes, and then we don't really know what it is.
Yeah, we've never seen it, we don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
So if you want to scroll back up, wanted to get this would potentially be kind of our top 5.
Mhm.
So Bailey Playground, Old Fort Ford Park, Marble Hill Playground, Lower Brush Park Staircase, and then the litter collection equipment. But it kind of was it was in every neighborhood,
That's right.
mostly focused on our small parks.
Mhm.
And then, well, you know, and while not leaving Van Cortlandt Park behind, but,
Yeah.
I had to pick 5 things.
Oh, it's well balanced, as you said, throughout the community. It's, you know, it's Kingsbridge Heights, it's Marble Hill, it's Riverdale. It's, you know, it really is good.
You hear any requests for Ewan Park?
Yeah, they had a request for lawn restoration, like because of the compaction that's happening there.
Yeah.
And I think that, Parks thinks that they can keep working on that in part of the regular budget.
Okay.
So, okay, so we'll make this our draft for now, and then we'll
Yeah, I think
finalize
so.
it at the next meeting.
So where is your expense budget?
Next, you want to scroll all the way down? Oh, just you wait, it's coming. Keep scrolling. All right, so expense. Parks Enforcement Patrol Command in Van Cortlandt Park. Repair the Bruckner Box Connection in Upper Henry Hudson Park. Crushed stone and boulders for maintenance. Crushed stones and boulders to enable repair of tracks and walkways within District 8 at Van Cortlandt Park. Joe McNary, Stephanie, are you there?
Well, it's not District 8.
I am.
So Joe McNary suggested making an adjustment to this so that it's crushed stones and boulders for repairs in dog runs. What do you think about that? He said that there were a lot of dog runs in need of some TLC, and that it was higher priority than the tracks and walkways. But
In his park.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, which tracks and walkways are we talking about? Stephanie, you know,
yeah,
because I run the cross-country course in Van Cortlandt, it's deteriorating from all the rain we've had. There are channels and
Yeah.
a lot of problems along that cross-country trail. It really does need to be upgraded, or actually to be restored to what it had been.
Yeah, so
Um,
a couple things. One is that I would say that it could be more general. It's crushed stone and boulders, and I think that it's for repairs.
mm-hmm.
Because whether it's for pathways or dog runs or whatever else we're using it for, we both need it. But I think that, to Bob's point, there is a much bigger project that we're going to have to start thinking about in terms of repairing the cross-country course. It is in very bad shape because of the heavy rains that we're getting. Like this past weekend was actually incredibly destructive. So,
Yeah.
Is that at the capital project, Stephanie, ultimately?
it's a capital project, but I don't have any sense of how much it's going to be. I think it's premature to talk about it in this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. So crushed stone and boulders for maintenance, crushed stone and boulders to enable repairs. What if we just said like tracks, pathways, and dog runs? I feel like it's helpful to kind of remind people
Sure.
what
Yeah.
what the
Sure.
things are for.
Yep.
Especially when you say dog runs, that might get a whole new group of
There
folks
you go.
are saying, yes, let's do that.
That's smart thinking.
And is within District 8, is that correct?
And Van
Yeah.
Cortlandt Park.
Yep.
Okay. And then replacement of Gator-type utility vehicles for landscape management, maintenance, and operations staff within Van Cortlandt Park. Replace 3 existing utility Gator-type vehicles due to age and maintenance issues.
Yes,
Right.
please.
How many do you have working at the moment, Stephanie?
Oh, don't ask that, Bob.
Okay, all right, sorry. It's always race to the bottom, I know. All right, yeah.
And then we did have one before that was funding to support free swimming lessons within the Bronx, which I had added. But then I did a little research, and so There's a Gray Foundation pilot, that'll provide $1.5 million for swim lessons for 2,000 second graders, this summer. And then through the school year. And then the city council also passed a bill to provide free swimming lessons to all second grade children, but that's not funded. And then Hochul has announced, a New York Swims program, which is gonna do some capital repairs to pools. So all of those things seem like good, and like, we can just back off for a minute and let things settle, and not waste a priority item on it.
Yeah, because this will be Bronx-wide or possibly even citywide,
It's
right?
citywide, yeah.
So, so we've, you know, our mandate here is to speak out for the Community Board 8 district.
Yep. Okay. That's it. So those would be the we only have, 4, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I think you should be asking for more PEP officers.
Yeah, that's number 1.
No, you're asking for a command.
It's personnel, so, so one thing is that if you're asking for, a command, you're asking for a whole group of officers, because in order to set up a command, you need a sergeant, and you need a certain number of officers, and that is a very, very big ask.
Yeah.
So yes.
I'm okay with a big ask. I mean, if I'm gonna be playing
but to Karen's
fantasy
point,
budget
it is.
priorities,
But to Karen's point, it is different. Like, if you're just asking for more PEP officers, it's different than asking for a command.
right. But I think we decided that a command would be what we want.
Yeah, very big.
Yeah. So then do we need to clarify the language? It says PEP, personnel stationed in Van Cortlandt Park sufficient to properly enforce DPR rules and regulations in Van Cortlandt Park and other district parks. So is it, so do we need to say a full, like additional PEP personnel?
Well, you're saying Parks Enforcement Patrol Command within Van Cortlandt Park.
Yeah.
And Stephanie's saying that means.
Right, that's
It's like a flock.
personnel.
It's
Yeah.
like a flock or a pride or.
It's a pride.
Pride.
Consider the uniform, it should be a posse.
But this year you
so
didn't get it. I mean, so you asked for it this year, but you didn't get it. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you were better off asking for something that you could get, like more PEP officers.
No, I don't think, I mean, I didn't get it, but I did get from the Parks Department that they supported this request. Which
Okay.
was nice, because they,
Don't take it away
I'm
then.
not, yeah.
Yeah, if, once they say yes.
But
We
the
support
other
it, but we
two-
don't have the budget for it, so.
But Community Board 7 got it.
I don't know what Community Board 7 got. I'm not sure anybody got more people that don't disappear I mean, they get reorganized all the time. So I feel like we should ask for what we want.
So are you like saying that every single district every community board should have their own PEP patrol command?
No, we're saying
I'm
that
like-
there's a PEP command our closest PEP command is in Pelham Bay Park. And so we wanted to have one that was just further, so it was basically divide the Bronx between east and west. So that there's the eastern side and the western side, and then that the one in Van Cortlandt Park would certainly patrol all the way south.
Yeah.
And to the Cross Bronx.
Does anyone know if this is a shared district?
I was just going to say,
So the other community boards have to have the same ask.
So I reached out to 7 and to 12, and they basically were like, we're in the middle of the process. Like, they've asked for more PEP officers and stuff in the past. They didn't, last year, their language was more, like what Karen is describing, they asked for just more officers instead of what, like, the year before, we had aligned language,
Yeah.
but then last year we didn't. And then,
Okay, and
they-
she's saying 7 got something.
yeah, I don't
And
know what they got.
And
they
12
divided-
and 12 got it. So, I mean, I mean, if that's what the Parks Department is asking for, then that's fine, but I think if you want to get something, you should ask for
How do
more.
you know
PEP
they got
officers.
it though? I mean, when
in-
we did it before,
It's
they've asked for
in the
years, everybody.
responses. It's in the responses. They have a citywide response document. It's all there.
Yeah, what, they said, here's 2 PEP officers? That's not, like,
They
how do you know
didn't,
that
they
they
didn't
actually
get
got?
to say, they didn't get the same answer that you got, which is that we don't support that. Whatever you had last year. I don't know what you had last year.
No, what I got was, we support that, but we don't have money.
Right. I don't think we've ever gotten a response from the Parks Department that said they don't support something that we've asked for. It's always been, we don't have the money, or
Call us.
call us for, further discussion, right?
Okay, can you add or additional PEP officers in that ask?
What if we instead of or, what if we said and? We want a command and we want additional PEP officers, and then
Okay.
we could have
Okay.
then
Yeah,
they can
that's-
split the baby?
Yes,
Because then they're choosing Coke or Pepsi, not cola. So they have to choose one. It's an old marketing trick, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so, you could say,
Parks Enforcement
after
Command
Van Cortlandt Park,
and additional PEP officers within Van Cortlandt Park.
correct, yeah. Here, there you go. Officers?
Yeah,
There you go, refer.
yeah.
I mean, under the
Then
theory
we-
that if everybody asks for more PEP officers, they'll have enough to separate them into another command.
Well, what they've been doing is they've been just moving them from one place to another place.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that's what they kind of said before, that they only have so many, and then they portion them as they need to based on need of parks. Like,
Yeah.
if there's issues in the park, then they, particularly severity of the issues, then they'll direct the PEP officers to, like, St. Mary's Park or whatever.
So I know that a command is a formal action, but, if 7 and 12 do have additional officers, and maybe we get a few, can they say this is a command? Then they actually have the personnel to
Yeah.
staff it.
I think it's what Stephanie's talking about too, though. They need to hire some of the
Of course, the supervisory, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
The officers.
And then there's the physical space too.
And then they need a place. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Oh,
so
Christina's got her
just
hand
for,
up. Yeah, Christina.
I'm sorry, just for clarity, sorry. PEP isn't assigned to a specific park, or a specific district. They're
Right.
just assigned to the borough. So the difference is that if there's a PEP command, that means that they are then assigned to that location only. So the way that it is now, because there aren't enough PEP officers in the borough, they're just kind of sent around wherever the problems are. So there's just not enough PEP officers throughout the whole borough. So that's what it is. So I'm not really sure what it means, Karen, when you say that the other community boards got more PEP officers, because they're just not assigned that way. So I don't understand. I don't understand what that really means.
So, CB7 did ask for a command, in their last budget.
Oh, no, last one? Okay.
Yeah.
I looked at the wrong thing.
No, they did. And, Stephanie, can you tell us about the mobile command vehicle? Have you seen that?
You know,
in this
don't-
area?
It's in the South Bronx. I don't know much about
Oh,
it.
it is South Bronx, okay, all right, okay.
Okay.
So they did ask for a command.
They asked for a
7.
command too, so they're still using the same language as they were using the
They
year
did,
before.
yes,
That's good.
yes.
So
So we should keep the request
we
for a
should keep
command.
yeah, I mean, that's what we want, so we had historically been asking for more PEP officers for a long time. It's a perennial budget item,
That's right.
so we might, and then the command idea came up, as a way to get, once we understood structurally how they were getting distributed and why we were getting, the short shrift, which was that they were coming far away, and so it took them 20 minutes to get over here, and then at the end of their shift, they needed to get back to Pelham Bay in order to kind of do their paperwork and wrap up, so they were also, we weren't getting a full till 11 o'clock at night, we were getting until 9:30 or something when they needed to go back over to start wrapping up their day. And then it's just even harder to get to Shorefront Park or Riverdale Park or any of these other parks that are even further west. Camelia?
Yeah, that just wanted to underscore what Stephanie said, which is critical administrative language, which is very important language that they understand. If they said okay to your previous request exactly in the wording that you did it with command, keep that exactly in that way and put a comma, adding a minimum amount of words. So exactly like you did, comma, including additional PEP officers assigned to Van Cortlandt Park, dot. But keep the exact thing that you put last year that they agreed with and they would like to fund if they would have the funds. This would be my suggestion.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, wait, what was your suggestion to change?
And including.
And
To keep
And
the
in
exact
the title
wording
or
that
in
you
the
had.
body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Stephanie speaks administrative language that Parks understands. So she
Right.
told you, keep what they gave you, what they want to give you already.
Right.
So,
So make sure it's consistent with the language we had last year,
Right.
where they were supportive
Take off and?
Of the command.
of the common concept.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
so is that gonna diminish the force of the previous year?
I don't think so,
That
because
close.
this is actually stating the part that Stephanie was saying before, which is when you ask for a command, you're asking for
Personnel. Okay.
personnel, additional personnel.
And it also
And
makes,
officers.
Jeff, it makes also sense logically because they have their commanding on the East Bronx and of course they have to float around and it's hard to come to the West Bronx and reinforces your request for a West Bronx command that also can float around to some extent, cover Van Cortlandt primarily, but also can go to Central Bronx if needed, right?
Right. Right, exactly. That's why Community Board 7 supported it. Okay. All right, so then I'll
Thank you,
clean,
Camelia.
oh,
That's good.
yeah, thank you, Camelia. So I'll clean this up and then,
Well, we just have 4 there now,
yeah,
right?
I don't think there's
Yep.
anything, I'll make that not red. And, I mean, unless you want to vote on the expense and come back and do the capital, or?
No, I was just wondering, did we have a 5th one? Usually we did.
Well, we had the funding to support the swim lessons, and then we had the rehabilitation of the lawn, but, Joe thinks he can do that under,
Okay.
Wait a minute. Is there anything that we need for, shorefront? Karen, remember?
no, I talked to
talk to Jody?
about,
Yeah,
and
what's going on
she
with
said she had funding that she needed. They funded the shorefront park pond
Restoration.
restoration.
That's right.
And then I connected her with the nursery so she can get all the plants she needs there, and then
Okay.
she's got worker bees, and then they're also working on the trail stuff. So she's got
Okay.
trail certification.
Yeah,
And so I think if we get the rocks and boulders, I mean, that also will help her with
yeah,
that.
okay.
But it seems like
That's
she's all
done.
set. We
Okay.
did a whole
So
walkthrough.
I'm gonna, refine the ENS ask. I owe Dan that language about the outfall, the living shoreline at the outfall.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's nothing to do with
I
Shorefront
think
Park
Shorefront
anymore.
Park is okay for the moment.
Thank you, okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So, okay. So then the last thing is, old business. So while we were away, so the New York Commission on Human Rights has been in our district, this winter, educating the community on their rights under the law against discrimination and on how to use their services. And so they got onto my radar. And so because I've been having questions myself and have heard concerns from others about the legality of the National Society of Colonial Dames, my favorite topic, so I reached out to them and with the board office regarding the membership policies in order to understand whether their membership actually was in violation or not. And also whether a city agency could lawfully enter into a license to operate a public facility with a 501c3 structure like the kind that they have. So for context, the New York Commission on Human Rights is the city agency charged with enforcing the New York City Commission on Human Rights law. And the New York City Human Rights law essentially prohibits discrimination on the basis of actual or perceived alienage and citizenship status, national origin, among other categories, by most employers, housing providers, and providers of public accommodations. And it's the public accommodations piece that kind of caught my attention. So under public accommodations, it's unlawful for places or providers of public accommodations, their employees or their agents, to directly or indirectly deny any person or communicate an intent to deny to any person the services, advantages, facilities, or privileges of a public accommodation, or to make their patronage feel unwelcome because of their actual or perceived immigration status or national origin. So I myself think that the membership policy of the Dames creates the perception of discrimination at Van Cortlandt House Museum. And so I wanted to see if my reading was a stretch. It might be a total stretch. I'm not a lawyer. Or appropriate. The New York City Commission on Human Rights has been really super helpful, and they just did a preliminary look into the matter to determine if this was appropriate for them to take up or to consider, particularly as a community board asking them, and for advice and guidance on it. And so they don't have an answer yet to these questions, but they did recommend that I open a formal inquiry to review the merits of they thought that it merited further review, and so I thought I would do that. And that, just also to be clear for the record, that doesn't mean the Dames are in violation of the New York City human rights law, but they may be, or there may be limitations to what kinds of public actions they can participate in. And so I thought whatever the commission comes back to us with, it would be useful regardless, and that I was kind of hoping that they would be, once they looked into it, they could come back and then they could speak to those pieces and present their findings and answer questions more broadly. I don't know what the time frame is, like whether they would be able to do that by May, but I thought that that would be maybe a way to kind of give voice to that piece and to kind of put it within the context of the agency for the city that's responsible for enforcing those rules. I wanted to bring it to the committee to see, before I actually put the inquiry in, to get your feedback on it.
Can I see the text?
Okay.
So the question is, I mean, as an organization, they can have whatever rules they want, and they can, they can be, you have organizations that limit themselves to people by, I mean, the Ancient Order of Hibernians. You have to be descended, you have to have ancestors who are Irish. There are organizations that are only for Jews or only for Catholics or, Knights of Columbus, for example. So anybody can have an organization that technically discriminates against other people because it's only for people of a certain ethnicity or religion or so on. The question is whether that disqualifies them from operating a city facility such as the Van Cortlandt Mansion, the Van Cortlandt House Museum. That's the question, correct?
So I would say actually that it's not legal to, like, that in our current time, you can't, if you're a 501c3, as I understand it, if you're a 501c3, and you take public money and you operate a public facility, you can't give the perception of discrimination. And that's the rub. If there are groups that like where it's like an Irish group or a Jewish group, right. But currently a way many of those are organized is that anybody can join them, but the organization is focused on Jewish issues or Irish issues, and the way that they're focused tends to kind of keep just Jewish people want to be participate in it, but that anybody legally can. They can't say at the door, prove that you're Jewish, prove that you're Irish. But there's also within this rule, the Commission on Human Rights came back to us and said there are carve-outs for private groups. And in private groups, there's like, I could try to find the email, but there were specific criteria that determined whether you were a private group, and one of that was not accepting public money. In the operation of the Van Cortlandt House Museum, they accept public money through admissions. Right. And so they also could potentially accept grants, which would be some form of public money, that's what starts to say, okay, maybe this organization isn't a small private group in the same way. So if you're like a small private group and you don't take any public money and you just meet and have coffee and you're all Irish, like that's a different thing
Right.
than if you're operating as a
Right.
501c3 and taking in public stuff. And then it also seems like it's another step of like being in a license to operate a publicly owned facility.
Right.
That's all. So
No, but that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
the Colonial Dames as an organization can be whatever kind of organization they want to be. I mean, for one thing, they're called the Colonial Dames. They're not called the Colonial Dames and Gentlemen, you know?
well,
So-
they have that too.
Yeah, so, the issue comes up when they're, operating the House Museum. That's.
Yeah, that's all,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, no, that's why,
Okay.
because I mean, it also may be that, that there's, that the commission comes back and says, it is fine for these reasons because of the way they're structured. One of the questions they've been the commission has asked is like, who makes decisions about things? Are there, do you have to be a member in order to, like, I guess, are certain decisions only made by people who meet these criteria, right? Which, for example, hiring seems like it's only made by people who are actual dames, but then they hire outside of dames. They hire executive directors and stuff. Although I will say, like, I was talking to somebody who lives in Kingsbridge Heights, who back in 2001, this isn't true anymore, but that in 2001 they applied to work in the gift shop, and were told that they couldn't work in the gift shop because only dames were allowed to be employees back in like 2000, 2001. And that's the kind of abuse. I mean, I think that times have changed and they've changed with it, and that's not true anymore.
Okay.
But, that certainly there's got to be some guidelines or something if you've got an organization that might have that kind of risk too.
So you're waiting to hear from the City Human Rights Commission about, whether they are an appropriate, organization to be operating the House Museum?
Yeah, operating a public house. Well, I have to do the inquiry. They asked me to submit the actual inquiry first, and so I wanted to come to the committee first and just, feel you out. And then if you threw tomatoes, I'd be like, okay, well.
I don't feel that it meets the standard, your concern meets the standard that are described in the human rights law. Because we don't have evidence of discrimination, public access discrimination, which is what they are placed under. It says that no one that the City of New York employs or delegates to or gives money to or gives permits to can use discriminatory practices or bias or exclusion in any public accommodation. We don't have evidence, except for that gift shop, that anyone has been excluded or discriminated against in public, especially since Nick has revamped the museum.
Right.
So I would have to see, and so we would have to say there's a problem that falls under the Human Rights Act, or Human Rights Law, for them to adjudicate. But as far as I've seen in our discussions, we have not seen cases where people said, I have been excluded from public accommodation or public access.
That's why I
We
want to
don't
be
see
clear,
it.
like they may come back and say, we don't see an issue here. And that's why also I wanted to talk to them first before submitting any kind of inquiry, like maybe this is not the appropriate venue. But when we described what we were talking, what the issue was really just purely about, here are their membership rules, here's what they operate, it's a public.
Yeah, I
and there is a
understand, yeah.
perception, there could be a perception, or I think there is certainly a perception that there could be discrimination happening. So, they could come back and say, this doesn't, because there's lots of other forms of discrimination that the New York Commission, the Commission on Human Rights is really focused on, that's much more direct, where you have a person who's an injured party who has been discriminated against in hiring or
Well,
whatever.
that's what I read describes, okay? It describes any impairment or discrimination in public accommodation, the public's right to public space. And again, the discussion you're having with them over their governance and membership is different than what that law is seeking to redress or prevent.
Well, I think that that's why I wanted
So
to
you're
find out,
answering
I
my
don't know.
question. I do not see, they are different things. I don't see an invitation in that law to seek their inquire, audit, inspect, analyze their membership. I don't. I see a safeguard for the rights of the public to equal and unbiased access, which they must provide. Okay? I don't see a violation of that in any of the meetings we've had of that so far. I've seen a discussion about you want a different organization, you want a different governance structure. That's not covered in that particular statute that I read. So you asked my opinion, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Did you?
I'm in agreement with Bob. I think the issue here, you know, that they have, obviously, they hired somebody who doesn't meet their own criteria, Nick Dembowski. So, you know, unless there is some sort of injury to the public, meaning that people are denied admission or they're treated differently, some members of the public are treated differently from other members of the public, I don't see this as a human rights issue. The issue that did come up at the January meeting that I think is a legitimate issue is whether they're properly operating the House Museum. You know, is there sufficient outreach to the community? Do they engage the community as well as operators of some of the other historic house museums do? Those are the issues that I think we should focus on. But as Bob said, I agree with him. I don't see an injury to the public that really warrants analysis from the City Human Rights Commission.
Rashida, do you want to say anything?
No, yes, and, so there's a yes and. Because I know we had discussion before, and initially I said I really did not care about the membership so much, just because that wasn't my focus. And I even asked the teams, what would be the tangible benefits of being a part of your organization anyway? I mean, that's just me. So I wasn't concerned about the membership. I was more concerned about the outreach. And then in the conversation with you, when you explained the whole, you know, how the membership can be perceived as being restrictive, and I thought, okay, well, if their membership is preventing the outreach from happening, then I think that would be the major issue. Not so much about whether you have to be whatever their requirements are. I personally don't care. I'm more concerned with the community. If we hear more about those sort of situations where a person applies for a job and they're like, well, no, you're not a Dane, then I think that's a major issue.
Right.
As far as whether they should operate in the human rights aspect, I would have to wait to hear more about the human rights part. But I'm more concerned about whether that outreach is happening and if it's engaging the community that is a part of, you know, and that area, you know, we're talking about like.
Right, Van Cortlandt Park and
Exactly.
around the stadium and stuff, yeah.
I'm not opposed to doing an inquiry though, because we wouldn't know
Right.
without inquiring. Like I would not have known that someone was denied access to a particular job if the inquiry wasn't made or.
I was just really feeling like I'm not a lawyer, and it just didn't seem right. And so that's why I thought it would be worthwhile to at least have them look. Like, that doesn't mean they're gonna find anything, but I just want to be clear. Then, that may be that then they come back and they say there isn't anything, and I think that that also does, bring some clarity to something that a lot of people do think is, like, that is an important part of it. I understand that, like, the committee is also primarily focused on the functioning of the House, that the House is not functioning correctly. But that I do think it does matter that this is the organization that we have to work with in order to kind of get them over the finish line. Is an organization that has to be propped up in grant writing because, you know, by the Historic House Trust. It has to be propped up in all sorts of ways, you know, to do their own programming, that they're, you know, really reaching out to programming from Van Cortlandt Park Alliance or other nonprofits, you know, Bronx Arts Council,
Arts Ensemble.
Arts Ensemble, thank you.
I didn't know what I was talking about.
you know, that they're relying on other people to do programming because they don't have enough money to do these things. And, I mean, I agree that those are also problems. And that's what they'll come back in May and talk to us about.
So, I stand by what I said. I don't see a warrant for what you want in the law, but I want to see what they are doing for us to change, in public outreach, when they come back in May. So
Yeah.
that is paramount. You know, their hiring plans, I think they should be transparent with us about what kind of search they're doing and who they're looking in. Are they looking locally? Are they looking nationally? Are they talking about the diversity of the Bronx and the diversity of the audiences and the historical archive they're working with, the Black history represented at Van Cortlandt Park? Are they putting that in their job descriptions? Okay. That we need to really push them on, because we can't make this a colorblind hire. And a colorblind, it is not. It's formed by race. And they need to incorporate race-conscious descriptions of what the house is, because it is a product of enslavement.
They've been doing that, Bob. I mean, that was what Nick brought to,
I have no, yeah, I'm in programming, yes. I'm saying in the job description.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we should.
But it's not, I don't have the job description in front of me, and I haven't read it in a couple of
I think
months.
that's what is gonna be a test of their mettle, to get to Rashida's point. And at that point, I think if they are not making clear that this is, you know, representing our values, then I think that actually, that has to pass legal muster. That job description has to pass legal muster.
I can send you the job description if you'd like it, and I can
Yes,
also,
I'd like
I made a note, I can check in with them to see where they are in the hiring process, because I don't know if
I'm
they've.
sorry, do you have that? I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I passed it out back in January, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Right.
But I can email it to you again.
Thank you, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. All right, and then Camelia.
Oh, hello? Yes,
Hello.
no, thanks for allowing me to jump in on this. Just to respond to Bob's initial objection and back you up, Deb, but also back up Bob Fanuzzi. So Bob, the moment an organization receives public funding, even if they're called Yemeni American Merchants Association, Arab American Family Support Services, the organizations I work with directly, they have to provide the services to everybody. If a Hispanic shows up at their door, they have to provide the services. An African American, non-Arabic, non-Yemeni shows up, they have to provide the services. So it's quite different. I think probably in your mind you are thinking about faith organizations, you know, Catholics, whatever, the Jewish synagogue, the evangelical church, that do not receive and are expressly prohibited from receiving public funding. You will not see discretionary funding going to places of faith. Deb, I must say, although I very much feel the spirit of your inquiry, and probably you have something, to put it simply, this is a very aggressive move from a community board level to raise questions on the bylaws of a separate organization. And I don't know where these people are registered as a 501c3 in New York State or another state. So kind of my alternative suggestion for the committee consideration is along the lines kind of Bob Fanuzzi suggest in terms of collecting the information, but also refer it to our council member, because it is in the council member's district that this organization is operating, and to kind of for him to refer to the Commission on Human Rights, kind of the matter whether the governance structure is appropriate and non-discriminatory. You see what I'm saying? And providing equal opportunity. And in terms of actual job descriptions, now, frankly, all job descriptions in New York State have that mandatory phrase, this job is open, blah, blah, blah. We respect EEO, equal employment opportunities. So I'm pretty sure they comply with like the legal thing. But the question is the relationship, what they told you, the decision-making, governance, their role of their governance and their bylaws in the management of what is essentially a public space. Thank you.
Right. But their bylaws, their management is the part that is restricted. That's, I think, their
Correct.
point.
Which means that you are correct in the sense that if their management is all dames of a certain family, then it may be a problem. But what I'm saying is that the inquiry may be appropriate, not necessarily from the CBA level, but from the council member's office. So you may want to collect information, forward to him, and have like a consultation prior to actually make a move of what is essentially a complaint.
Well, it's more of an inquiry. I mean, it's like, it's really trying to understand a little bit, because I am not a lawyer, what their advice would be. I think that's really.
I would just make sure, I stand by what I said, and I would just make sure Julie, has the final say in this. Because, as the committee has said, this represents a government-to-government request. This goes beyond just a committee request. It's a very serious thing, to even ask for inquiry. So I would want Julie to be, I have no more say over this, but whatever you do, I would want Julie, to hear her point.
Yeah, Julie, do you want to comment, or do you want to
Just cogitate.
think about it and we'll get back? Because I'm really treating it more of a, like, an inquiry to understand, like, because that was kind of the spirit in which it was offered from them. I mean, honestly, they're trying to lower the bar to make it.
Yeah, but it's mayoral correspondence, and then it goes to their council. It's a big deal.
And I think, I mean, as Bob said, that, you know, we're a government agency, and I think, you know, to make an inquiry, there has to be a reason, right, there has to be a reason to make an inquiry. Has there been an injury to a member of the public? Injury meaning they were denied access, or they were treated differently from other members of the public. I think in the absence of that, I frankly don't see that there is any basis to make an inquiry of the commission. If you want to do it as a private citizen, of course,
Yeah,
you have
you
that
go
right.
ahead, yeah.
But, you know, but for the committee, I wouldn't support it as a member of the committee.
Yeah.
Julie, do you want to talk about it later? Maybe she's not on.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll follow up with Julie.
Yeah.
I'll take this under consideration for sure, and I appreciate you being candid with me.
Definitely,
Sure.
yeah. No, we are clear.
I appreciate your asking.
No, of course. All right, so where are we at?
Oh,
So
Julie
any
says
other-
yes.
Julie said yes? Yes,
She-
let's
She's
talk
on,
about
she's
it.
on.
Oh, she is
She hasn't said yes to either of us. She said yes.
I'm gonna take a.
She says she can't
Yes to
hear.
everything? I'll follow up with her.
Yes to
Perhaps
everything.
you can watch the video. Any other old business? No, other old business, any new business? Do you have old business or new
I
business?
was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Well, the new business is we should say farewell to Bob Finucane.
Oh, this has been a pleasure.
Thank you. That's all
That's all business. But I just want to say, you'll be hearing from me in the public gallery in, what would that be? April, in joining the board to support the Parks Committee resolution.
Nice.
And I am very, very grateful. Oh, no, whenever you do break, you're gonna vote on it
We're
next.
gonna vote on it in April, and then we'll be at the May, it'll be at the May
You will see me
meeting.
in May in the public gallery, and I am going to say that we're playing a leading role, as we always do, in, parks and, planning, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for supporting this.
absolutely.
Means a ton.
Okay, it's an important thing.
So now, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah, second.
Second, all right, we are adjourned. 9:15.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.